Lionel Messi has won more Ballon d'Or trophies than any player in history. He scored more goals in a calendar year than any living player. When he left Barcelona in 2021, the club aired every single goal he'd ever scored for them. The broadcast started at 11:15 at night. It ended at 4:30 in the morning. 5 hours of goals that each lasted only a few seconds. And yet, in a typical match, Messi barely runs. In a 2017 game against Real Madrid, one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports, Messi ran for just 4 minutes. He walked for more than 80 of the game's 90 minutes. When he was engaged, he created 9 chances, scored a goal, and assisted another. Then he went back to walking. He scored in every minute of a professional match except minutes 1 and 2. The only minutes he doesn't score are the minutes he spends just watching. His former coach, Pep Guardiola, once described it like this: right, left, right. He smells who is the weak point of the back four. After 5-10 minutes, he has the map. The map. But a map of what? In 2011, a team of scientists put both an amateur soccer player and Cristiano Ronaldo through an experiment. They crossed a ball from the wing and mid-flight cut every light in the stadium. Watch what happens. The amateur is totally lost. He isn't even close to the ball. It's not a big surprise, right? I mean, they turned the lights off. Now let's see how Ronaldo does. Perfect. Right in the back of the net. And Ronaldo's strong, and he's fast, and he's incredibly good looking, but that has nothing to do with strength or speed or being incredibly good looking. It's impressive, right? Or was it luck? Well, they did it again with a half volley and, as you might expect, same result. His brain had already understood the trajectory of where the ball would be before the lights went out. He didn't even need to see it arrive. So how is this possible? How is Messi such an elite scorer without needing to move much? What is he actually doing in those first minutes when he's just walking and looking? How does Ronaldo know where a ball will land when he can't even see it? Are these just incredible reflexes, or is it something else entirely? Well, most sports actually happen faster than human reaction time should really allow. A major league fastball reaches home plate in about 400 milliseconds. That's less than half a second. But a batter's brain needs roughly 200 milliseconds. Half that time just to see that an object is in flight, to send that message across the synapses, the gaps between neurons, to the back of the brain, and to initiate the muscular action for a swing. Not to actually swing, just to initiate movement. And not only that, but humans don't have a visual system capable of tracking an object as its angular position changes that rapidly as it approaches your face. So that advice we give kids to keep your eye on the ball, it's not possible. You can't do it. A kid could close their eyes when the ball's halfway to home and it wouldn't make any difference if it weren't psychologically upsetting. The decision if and where to swing has to have happened already by that point. Some sports are even more time limited than baseball, like boxing. Muhammad Ali's jab took about 40 milliseconds to go from first perceptible movement to connecting with a face. That's faster than you could blink if I shined a flashlight in your face. Nobody is reacting to that. And yet, boxers still slip punches all the time. What's going on? Scientists have a name for what's actually happening here that allows humans to hit fastballs or connect on a header with the lights out or dodge a jab. They call it anticipatory skill. And it doesn't come from faster reflexes. It comes from reading patterns before they unfold. Researchers like Janet Starks and Bruce Abernethy ran a series of studies where they showed athletes video footage of opponents in action, then they froze the footage at different moments. Elite performers could predict what was coming: a serve direction, a pitch type, a shot placement, from the opponent's body position alone, often before the ball had even left their hand. Novices who watched the same footage couldn't do it. They were watching the ball. The experts were reading the body. Consider Albert Pujols. Over a 22-year career, he hit 703 home runs and batted .296, putting him among the greatest hitters in baseball history. When researchers at Washington University in St. Louis brought him into a lab and tested his simple reaction time, he just had to press a button when a light flashed. He scored in the 66th percentile, slightly above average, but not superhuman, not even particularly fast. Actually, He did quite a bit worse than I did when I took the same test. And yet he smoked pitches traveling 95 miles per hour or faster year after year after year. But anticipatory skill does have a weakness. It only works when the patterns are familiar. In 2004, Pujols faced Jenny Finch, one of the greatest softball pitchers in history, during an exhibition game for charity. He couldn't even hit a foul ball off of her. Neither could the other major league hitters who stepped in against her that day. The results were so stark that it prompted a TV show where Finch would travel around to major league teams and strike out their best hitters on a weekly basis. At least those who would face her. Alex Rodriguez refused even to try. On the face of it, it doesn't make sense. Sure, Finch throws from a closer mound, but her pitches in the mid-60s miles per hour were so much slower that the flight time of the ball is about the same as a mid-90s fastball in the majors. Nothing extraordinary. And yet, the best hitters couldn't touch it. Why? Because Finch pitches underhand, a full windmill delivery. These hitters had spent their entire careers reading overhand mechanics. The rotation of a pitcher's shoulder, the angle of the forearm, the flicker of the pitch, which is the flashing pattern that the seams on the ball make as it spins. Facing Finch, who had totally different shoulder rotation, arm angle, and ball spin, they were stripped of all that learned expertise that allows them to predict the future. The prediction engine just had nothing to predict from. Look at what happens when a catcher is expecting a fastball but gets thrown a breaking ball instead. His glove doesn't even move, so it's clearly not his reflexes. A professional catcher, someone who handles 150 pitches a game, completely frozen. In fact, the Toronto Blue Jays are leveraging this exact vulnerability right now. On their 2026 roster, Trey Savage releases the ball from a height of 7.1 feet at a 64-degree arm angle. His teammate, Tyler Rogers, releases from 1.3 feet at negative 61 degrees. Nearly a 5'8" difference in release point between two pitchers on the same roster. When a hitter faces Savage and then Rogers in back-to-back innings, their anticipatory models have to be rebuilt from scratch. The patterns they read from one delivery are useless against the other. And remember what I said about boxing? It's even more time-limited than baseball. Take a look at this. These two punches are in these boxers' lines of vision for about as long as punches can be. And watch this second one. Could a punch take any longer than this? You can't tell me he doesn't see that. Bam! It's not that he doesn't dodge it. He doesn't even begin to flinch because the punch came from a weird angle with strange body movements. And so it confounded his anticipatory skill. And he went down like a ton of bricks. So how did Messi, Ronaldo, and Pujols build this skill? And can the rest of us build it too? The answer is something psychologists call chunking. Through years of repeated exposure, the brain stops processing raw information piece by piece and starts compressing it into familiar patterns. Different movements in a pitcher's windup and delivery become one recognizable unit, or a chunk, that conveys a signal to the batter's brain. Ball's going here or there, swing or don't swing, and that decision has to happen almost immediately after the ball's released. A defender's hip angle becomes another. A formation on the field is another. The more of these chunks you've stored, the less you need to consciously process, and the faster you can predict what's coming next. Some of the earliest research on chunking came from chess. In the 1940s, a Dutch psychologist flashed mid-game positions to players for 3 seconds and then asked them if they could recreate the board. Grandmasters did it perfectly. Beginners couldn't come close. So it looked like grandmasters just had photographic memories. But a generation later, a group of researchers recreated the famous experiment, but they added a wrinkle. This time, they also included boards with randomly placed pieces, positions that would never occur in a real game, even if they looked kind of normal. And in that condition, the grandmasters performed just like beginners. They didn't have photographic memories at all. They had pattern libraries that broke down an otherwise chaotic board into small, meaningful groups or chunks. A real game board with 20 pieces wasn't 20 individual things to remember to them. It was just a few recognizable chunks. In 2007, National Geographic TV actually showed this in a dramatic demonstration with the Grandmaster Susan Polgar. They sat her at a sidewalk table in the middle of a leafy block of Manhattan's Greenwich Village, in front of a cleared chessboard. New Yorkers were going about their jaywalking business when a white truck bearing a large diagram of a chessboard with 28 pieces in mid-game play took a left turn onto Thompson Street, past a deli, and then past Susan Polgar. She glanced at the diagram as the truck drove by, and then she perfectly recreated it on the board in front of her. After Susan succeeded in that test, National Geographic TV turned the truck around to show the other side, which had a diagram with pieces placed at random. When Susan saw that side fly by, even though there were fewer pieces, she could barely recreate anything at all. Quarterbacks do the same thing. If you did an eye-tracking study of me and watched me play quarterback, you'd see me following the person I want to throw to. And if they were covered, I'd switch and follow another player. But if you did an eye-tracking study of Tom Brady, you'd see him looking at spaces between players that give information about the relationship of the different parts and what's going to happen next. He's a grandmaster playing speed chess. He has just seconds to throw. I recently attended a talk by NFL legend Drew Brees, and in it, he said that he probably only actually saw 50% of the receivers he ever threw to. He described being an NFL quarterback as like standing in the lobby of a downtown office building, and you look outside to the street, and cars are whizzing by. Those are your receivers. And looking out from the lobby, you see window, pillar, and you just catch glimpses of the cars between the pillars. From those fragmentary glimpses, you decide what's going on and where you can throw. This isn't just for grandmasters and elite athletes. All of us chunk in things in which we're skilled, and I'll prove it to you. I'm going to show you 20 words, and I want you to memorize as many as you can in 10 seconds. So how'd you do? Maybe 3, 5, 10 if you're really good at memory tricks? Okay, let's try again. Ready? Go. Do better that time? Of course you did, because you've learned a system of grammar and groups of words and phrases that your brain can combine into meaningful chunks. And this is the skill that Messi, Ronaldo, and Pujols all share. They're chunking positions of people and angles of legs and spins of balls in order to understand immediately what's going on and what might happen next. The more patterns you absorb in any domain, the less effort it takes to read what's happening and to predict what's coming next. So when Messi walks, he's not resting, he's chunking the entire field. Every position, every shift, every gap in the backline is feeding a pattern library that he's been building since he was 5 years old. And by the time he decides to move, the map is already drawn. And when Ronaldo heads a ball into the net in total darkness, it's because he's seen that angle of another player's leg and that ball's trajectory 100 times over and knows the pattern it follows. Chunking isn't reserved for professional athletes, that's just a particularly dramatic demonstration. Your brain builds pattern libraries in whatever domain you spend time in. The more different situations you expose yourself to, the more raw material your brain has to compress into chunks. And the research suggests a few things that speed this up. First, variety matters more than just rote repetition. Seeing the same exact pattern over and over is less useful than seeing many different patterns. This is why a hitter who faces 100 different pitchers develops better anticipatory skill than one who faces the same pitcher 100 times. The variety forces the brain to build a more general database that can then be used for what psychologists call transfer. That is, taking what you've learned and applying it in totally new situations, just like you do with the language you've learned. If you do tons of repetition in one scenario, but don't have a lot of variety, you're building a rigid skill that won't transfer. Variety is what forces your brain to create flexible skills. Second, predict before you know. When you actively guess what's going to happen next, whether you're watching game film or sitting in a meeting, and then check whether you were right, your brain updates its models faster than if you just passively observe. You should actually always do this if you can. In psychological research, there's something called the generation effect. It means that forcing yourself to generate a guess or a prediction before you see the answer primes your brain for better learning. So whether it's watching film or studying for a test, force yourself to guess and then see what happens. Doesn't matter if you're right, you'll learn better. And third, pay attention to the moments you get it wrong. When your prediction breaks down, that's an opportunity to expand your pattern library. You actually want to be getting it wrong a lot, at least 15% of the time. Otherwise, what you're doing is too easy. In learning, that's called a desirable difficulty. and it's the single most scientifically backed learning hack in existence. If you liked this video, you'll probably love my story about how Southwest Airlines turned their business around when they only had $140 left and had to sell one of their planes and couldn't service all their routes anymore. It's a fascinating story of innovation under constraints, and I cut it from my new book, Inside the Box. That was probably a mistake because it's fascinating, but now I'm offering it for free. You can download it at the PDF in the description. Take a look. It's fascinating. I probably should have left it in. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.